Hey, everybody, I got a cool Christmas question for you. As most of us know, Hanukkah, the Jewish holiday, is celebrated for 8 days successively. It shifts a little bit on the Western calendar because the Hebrew calendar is a little bit different, but it's always during winter. It's always right near when we celebrate Christmas. Now, the question I have for you is this. Did Jesus celebrate Hanukkah? And if he did, is it found in the Bible? And if it is, where is it? And was it significant to his ministry? And the answer to those 4 questions is yes, 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 and yes. Buckle up. This is cool. In order to understand this, you have to understand what Hanukkah is. And so real briefly, at the risk of being too simplified, I'm simply going to say that about 200 years before what happens in the Bible where Jesus is celebrating Hanukkah and where it's placed, about 200 years earlier, a Greek ruler named Antiochus Epiphanes comes in. He declares himself, he's a profligate, spoiled brat who grows up in the lap of luxury and thinks he's God. So he declares himself to be God, and he declares everybody in his part of the empire must worship him. So he has these statues carved and sent out, and the Jews say, no, we're not doing that. So he sends an army. Antiochus sends an army of Seleucids. These are the people who live at the time in the area we now call Syria. They go in, they kill 40,000 people in Judea. They slaughter the priests. They sacrifice pigs to defile the Jewish tradition in the temple, in the holy place, and they install a statue of Antiochus, and they tell everybody to worship it. This triggers a revolt. And that revolt it's a guerrilla war. It's a civil war against Antiochus's Seleucid army, and it's led by a group of people called the Maccabees. So it's called the Maccabean Revolt. The word Maccabee, according to legend, means hammer. So these guerrilla fighters go in, they drive the Seleucids out, and then they have to cleanse the temple and reestablish appropriate worship. So when they do that, of course, because the land has been devastated by war, supplies are in short demand. So there's a big menorah, candelabra, if you will, in the temple, and it has to be lit. And once it's lit, it stays lit forever. But they only have a 1-day supply of oil. So they fill the menorah with oil, and they pray, and they light this thing, and they don't have any more oil to fill it, but it takes about 8 days for them to process olives to get the oil to burn in there. Whatever the process is, there's an 8-day gap. And this 1-day supply of oil burns for 8 days. And that causes the people to begin to celebrate this rededication of the temple that's known as Hanukkah. If you translate Hanukkah into English, it's dedication. So go to John chapter 10 in your Bible, and you will find that Jesus is at the temple at the Feast of Dedication. What is it? It's Hanukkah. Now, what happened at Hanukkah? What started it? It was a pagan king who came in and declared himself to be God in the temple. This is real important to understand because Jesus is in Solomon's colonnade. He's been performing miracles. He's been preaching. He's been doing all these things. He's coming toward the end of his ministry. And the priests and Pharisees see him inside the temple, and they challenge him, and they say, if you are the Christ, tell us plainly. If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly. And Jesus says, I've shown you through miracles. I've shown you through my word. I've been saying it all along. You're not hearing me. You're not believing me. And they press him. And finally he says to them, I and the Father are one. What do? They immediately pick up stones to kill him, but they can't. And that's important too. Jesus leaves. He goes across the River Jordan, and he goes to the place out in the wilderness where John the Baptist was first baptizing. Remember, John the Baptist has been murdered by now. He's been executed. So Jesus is back at that place, and people are coming, and they're hearing what he has to say and all that. And during this time, his friend Lazarus grows sick. And so the sisters of Lazarus send a message to Jesus, come help cure Lazarus, relieve him of this death. And his friends go, are you going to go? Because it's dangerous. They live in Bethany, and Bethany's 2 miles from Jerusalem. If you go there, then you're going to get arrested for your blasphemy that they're accusing you of, that you did during Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication in the temple. And Jesus says, This is a sickness not unto death. Lazarus is falling asleep. And Lazarus dies. And after Lazarus dies, Jesus goes to Bethany. He goes right into the heart of enemy territory where there's somebody hiding behind every bush waiting to arrest him. And he goes right into the heart of that. And there are people who were there at the temple when Jesus declared himself to be one with the Father, as well as other mourners who are from that area. And he says to the sisters of Lazarus, he says, I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe it? And they have a dialogue. And he says, go roll the stone away from the tomb. Open up Lazarus' tomb. And the sisters object. They say, he's been dead 4 days. There's going to be a smell. Surely his body is already beginning to decay. And he says, roll the stone away. Trust me. They roll the stone away, and Jesus calls into the tomb, and with a loud voice, and he says, Lazarus, come out. And Lazarus comes out. He staggers out, still wrapped in burial cloths, like a mummy. Why is this important in the context of what he did just previously in the temple? Well, right before he declares himself to be one with the Father in the temple, he performs a miracle that no one has ever performed in the Old Testament. He heals a man who is blind from birth. And the way he does it is very unique. He takes dirt, he spits in his hand, makes mud, rubs it in the guy's eyes, and sends him off to go wash, and the guy gets his sight. He's been blind from birth. What is this a picture of? It's a picture of what Christ did in the garden when he made Adam. Because he took dirt, he formed a man out of that dirt and breathed life into him. Now, on a smaller scale, God is taking... God in the human flesh, Emmanuel, is taking dirt, spitting, making mud, rubbing it in the eyes of a man who's born blind for the glory of God. And the guy washes, and no one can understand how he does this. The next thing he does is he goes to the temple, and during the Feast of Dedication, which remembers the time when the temple was defiled by a pagan man who said he was God, Jesus declares himself to be God in human flesh. He tells them, I am Emmanuel. I and the Father are one. And they try to kill him, but they can't. And here's why they can't. They can't because the Romans occupy that part of the world. And under Roman law, you cannot kill a man. Only the Romans can do it. So the Jews are prohibited from conducting, from executing a capital prisoner. So they pick up stones to kill him, but they can't. They have to stop, because they'll have a death sentence on their head if they do. And this is also so beautifully tied in, because when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, he does it with a word. And the only person who could ever possibly raise a man from the dead just by speaking the word and calling him back from the dead is God. So he's demonstrated now on 3 occasions, one right after the other, who he is. And they hate him for it. And the plot to kill him really begins to take life after that Feast of Dedication at Hanukkah. And it's fascinating to me that in the Christian tradition, we celebrate Christmas, although it probably didn't, happen right at that time in December, what we have, our month of December, but we celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah right next to each other. It's kind of cool because it points back to the Messiah that the Jews missed. Now, if you ask the Jews who killed Jesus, they'll say, we didn't do it. If you ask a modern Jew, Jews didn't kill Jesus, the Romans did. Well, that's true and it's not true. It's a half-truth. The real truth is that the Jews couldn't. So they went to first Herod, who's the tetrarch under Roman authority, and he decides he doesn't want anything to do with this. He's not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole, and he sends Jesus under arrest to Pilate. And Pilate, who is the Roman governor, gives the people a choice. You can have a serial killer named Barabbas, son of his own father, or you can have this man who claims to be king of the Jews. Who do you want? And they say, give us Barabbas. And then he says, what should we do with this guy, Jesus? And they cry out, crucify him. The Jews didn't drive the nails, but they demanded it be done. They demanded it be done. They didn't put the spear in his side, but they demanded it be done. The Romans executed him. The civil government, Herod, between the Roman governor and the Jews, washed his hands. He wasn't going to have anything to do with it. So what's fascinating to me is, in God's perfect orchestration of all of this, you have all forms of government, religious government, military government, and civil government, all conspiring to kill the Christ. No one gets off. They're all guilty. And they do it during Passover, when, once again, by their own law, the Jews are forbidden from killing a man. But they're not forbidden from asking the Romans to do it on their behalf. And that's what happens. What's fascinating to me is, if you go back and look at the breadcrumbs, if Christ had chosen not to walk into the temple and in Solomon's colonnade declare himself to be God in human flesh, if he had chosen not to do that, the Jews, the high priests, would not have been so determined to see him dead. You see, without Hanukkah, without the significance of Hanukkah inspiring the high priests to kill him, might not have had the crucifixion. Jesus knew it. He knew exactly how this was going to unfold. Isn't that cool? Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Hope you enjoyed it.